Junior year, over Thanksgiving break, I went to a small party with a few of my friends. I got there at about 8. I immediately began drinking when I got there and took 5 tequila shots. Shortly after, I grabbed a beer while hanging out with people. At this point, I was decently drunk. A few minutes after finishing my beer, I played 3 games of beer pong in about an hour, which is roughly another 4 beers. I went back to the kitchen and took 3 shots of Bacardi and then had another beer. At this point, I was very drunk and decided to have a break from drinking. I went back into the living room to sit down for a little next to a girl. We started hooking up on the couch and then decided to play 2 more games of beer pong together. At this point, I was very drunk and don't remember it all, but I remember going into a random room and started to hook up again with her. I don't really remember it so well, but I remember going further than I wanted to. Again, it gets fuzzy, but I remember leaving the room at 12:30. I went back to the room with my friends and fell asleep on the floor. I regret drinking as much as I did that night. I still feel guilty that I hooked up with that girl. If I hadn't been as drunk, it would have never have happened. During my freshman year, I was invited to hang out with older kids. I went over to one of their houses and was informed we were going to a party later that night. I had never drank before and felt obligated to drink because I was with older kids and didn't want to seem lame. We started pre-gaming before we went to the party, and they filled an entire cup of vodka for me. Not knowing how it would affect my body, I just started to drink it all. I probably had about 7 to 8 shots in the course of an hour. I blacked out before I had even gotten to the party. The last thing I remember was sitting in the car, ready to leave. When I woke up the next morning, I was laying on the couch with my mother sleeping by my side, and I had no idea how I got there. I was told by my parents and friends that while at the party the night before, I was passed out and throwing up all over myself. I felt so embarrassed and completely regretted drinking all that I did. This one time sophomore year, I got invited to a party. It was with senior friends. It was one of the first times where I really drank a lot. Feeling pressured by the older kids, I started drinking way too much alcohol. I didn't want to look bad, so I kept drinking. It got to be 9:30 and I was already way too drunk. I couldn't control myself and was throwing up everywhere. I had to go outside so I could continue to throw up. I ended up outside throwing up for the rest of the night all by myself. I felt completely embarrassed. That night was one of the worst nights of my life. It was not worth it to seem cool because I was drinking. I would have much rather stayed sober.